Today I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina at the American Association of Woodturning Symposium. And in this video I'll be interviewing Lyle Jamieson. So don't go anywhere, stick around. Be sure and watch the whole video, see what Lyle has to say. Hello, I'm here in Raleigh, North Carolina at the AAW Symposium for 2019. I'm here with Lyle Jamieson, a famous woodturner, sculptor, teacher, and I've got some questions. We're going to spend a couple of minutes together. Thanks for coming. I appreciate you doing this, Lyle.
Oh, my pleasure.
It's a great honor. According to your bio, you began turning in 1988, and you turned for 10 years before you decided to go professional. Want to tell us a little about that?
Well, I actually started turning as a kid. You know, I've been turning all my life, sawdust in my blood, woodworking and turning in the early stages. And then in 1988 is when all of the other woodworking stopped, and I only turned from that part on. All the rest of the tools got left behind. So it's always been part of my life. It's something that I've done forever. Gave up my day job around the year 2000. I was never a very good employee because I was totally invested in my turning work and trying to establish my credibility in my teaching and everything. So it's been part of my life forever. It's been the major focus of my life forever.
It's great. Do you recall the first piece that you had that was accepted into a gallery?
Well, my first pieces were functional pieces, like a lot of people do. I did little craft shows and things like that, and I realized that that wasn't my thing. That I didn't want to do repetitive work of the same pieces all the time. So my pieces gradually evolved to less and less function and more artistic pieces. And so, you know, I've been in local galleries around my area in northern Michigan, Traverse City. I've been in major galleries all around the country with some of my more figurative artwork. First one, I really wouldn't be able to even go back. It's so long ago to remember who the first gallery was.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. Can you kind of relate to my subscribers out there, give them some advice if they're thinking about making that transition from doing functional work to artistic work and then maybe trying to get into some art shows?
Great topic. You have to find a source if you want to sell your tools, you have to find a source that matches what you want to do. If you're doing small functional things, bowls, lidded boxes, pens, whatever, you can go to a little local gift shop and probably be successful. If you want to sell more artistic things, you need to be in an art gallery, and you can find a venue someplace that will handle the price point and the kinds of things that you want to sell. So it's a matter of finding the right fit. You can't force something non-functional in a lesser craft show kind of a atmosphere. So
I always find it difficult to know how to price my pieces, and if somebody's just starting out making that transition, what advice would you give them for learning how to price their pieces?
That's really tough, and that again goes back to the venue. It goes back to where your market is. You have to kind of fit into the kind of venue that you can find. If it's a higher end gallery, you can charge more for your pieces. If it's a little craft show or church bazaar, well, you'll never get the higher prices for it. So you have the power to set your own value. I had a famous Native American potter that lives in my area that you know, is well known all over the world. And I talked to him one time and got the wisdom from him one time about that. And he says, you have the power to put the price, any price that you want on it. And then you just have to go find the place to sell it. A good example would be my figurative things. They take me 3 months to make the huge figures and all of the carving that I do on that, and then handling the green wood and curing it down through the process so that it won't crack, and all of the things that I need to do. So they're expensive pieces. Well, I don't have an outlet in my local town to sell those. And so I had to get out, I had to use some imagination, and a success story on that was that I went to plastic surgeons. Okay, you got to think about that a minute. Plastic surgeons, they value the human form and they have a lot of money. And so it was a great fit, so most of my pieces were sold to plastic surgeons.
That's great. Speaking of your pieces, what was the inspiration for leading you to the human form?
That goes again to the normal progression of things, where you start out with functional things and you grow into the turning process. When you learn the foundation elements, you do some kind of simple things, and once you learn the process, then it opens up new possibilities, and the learning curve never ends, because when you get to where you want to go, it opens up a new venue, new things that you can explore and do. So, and that's exactly what I did. I went into less and less functional things, and I saw a piece as I was traveling. I saw an old artifact in the Cleveland Museum of Art one time, that it was an old stone artifact, but it was figurative. It was like a cement looking thing. It had legs on it. And so my first thought was, wait a minute, if I do that out of wood, it's got to be hollow. I can't do anything of a large scale on a solid block of wood. It's going to check and crack. So I have to hollow it. Well, so my first challenge was technical challenge. How am I going to hold it on the lathe and get into multiple axes to hollow it, and then carving the shape of the human form? I had no experience on that, so I had to learn all that from scratch. And you just follow the trail of things that and that's another message, is just follow the fun. Because I'm doing sculpture, non-functional things, doesn't mean that everybody wants to do that. Whatever your enjoyment is from the lathe, well, then that's the trail you want to follow. Just because a famous turner is doing a certain kind of work, you don't have to do that kind of work. Do the things that you enjoy.
You mentioned just a second ago in your sculpting of human forms, grain orientation. Does that play a big role in how they turn out?
Very much so, and not only in the figures, but in all my work, I'm very careful to orient the grain. Grain character and grain orientation is critical in the technical way that I'm handling the tools, but in the end result, I want to create something spectacular. I want to orient the grain. I'm in complete control of the grain orientation, so that it will help project and show the character of the wood. So in the human form, the grain orientation is a straight grain trunk of a tree. So if I face the feature of the tree, the tummy or the breast, towards the bark, and the annual rings are going to then make a topographical map. They're going to enhance the rounded form of the human form. Okay, so I'm in control of that. I plan that all out ahead of time. As I'm working on the figures, I know where the grain is, so that I can make it work better and enhance the form for me.
Your forms, do you start with green wood or dry wood? Or?
Right, you can't dry a tree. I don't even look at a tree with some of those forms that's more than 30, 36 inches in diameter, huge trees, because I'm only using half of it. The pith is never in it, so I'm using half of the tree, and so it's always wet. It's got to be wet. If it is drying out at all, it's going to check and crack. So I always start with wet wood. And all the work I do, not only the figures, I always start with wet wood and do it down to finished product. I don't usually double turn.
Yeah, everybody I know, including myself, loves to turn green wood. I mean, that's just a joy. The problem is we're kind of afraid of the checking and cracking and the movement.
Okay, they're very easy. When you're doing green pieces to finish, the couple keys is, one is you have to do a uniform wall thickness. You can't have a fat spot and a thin spot that's going to dry out at different levels. You have to have a uniform wall thickness. You have no pith in it. And you have to have a piece of wood that doesn't have any cracks to begin with. Wood is perishable. You have to store it for a short period of time, and then a piece of wood is going to do one of two things over a period of time. It's either going to rot or it's going to crack, and we don't want either one of those. So if it starts to crack and rot, throw it out and you get some more in. So you got to use fresh wood in order to prevent. You don't want the crack already to be there when you start it, and then uniform wall thickness is the key.
Back when I started turning, probably 2 years after I started turning, I decided I wanted to do hollow forms. And the first one that I did, they were just painful. And then I discovered your hollowing tool, okay? And I bought that probably 7, 8 years ago. And it changed the experience of hollowing so much for me. I mean, it is just so easy to use that tool. How did that come about?
Well, all of the excitement, all the creativity, all the design issues are on the outside of a hollow form. So when you get on the inside, you just want to get the wood out without beating your body up and move on to the next piece. So I started the hollow form captured hollowing tool in 1996, and so I was the first one to do that commercially. I learned from the masters in my field. It's what I did when I first started turning back in 1988. I went around the country and I worked with the best turners I could find. Not only the best turners, but the best teachers in the turning world. And to this day, all of the things that I teach and all that I work with, none of it is mine. I learned it from all of these other masters in our field that preceded me. So back then, there was the Ed Maltrops and the stars in our turning world back in the 50s, 60s, 70s that were doing big vessels. And they had these monster boring bars that they would use, and some of them you had to have a forklift to get it on the lathe. They're so big and heavy and these monster things. So they had to find a way to do the hollowing with these huge monster tools. Well, I said, well, most people don't want to do these big things, so what I did is I stole the ideas, the captured kind of an idea from multiple people that were using big tools, and I shrunk it down so everybody could do it. And then that's what started the Jamieson system. So it's not totally my idea, but I just took the best pieces of the puzzle in the industry at the time, back in the 80s and early 90s, and put it together to make it something that everybody could use.
That's pretty much how everything comes about, isn't it? You borrow something from this and borrow something from that, and put it all together, and it becomes yours. I know it's been a joy for me. I would not hollow anything without that. And you, at one point, you decided that you wanted to impart your knowledge, so you started doing some teaching and some workshops. How did that come about?
Very early on, when I started learning all of these techniques from these experts, I was so excited about it. Sure, I wanted to share it with anybody I could, so I shared it with my local turning club and then locally around Michigan. And so if you'd have called 40 years ago, if you'd have told me I was going to be a teacher or an artist, I'd say you're crazy. It's not in my vocabulary. I flunked speech class. There's no way I'm going to get up in front of people and talk to people, but the passion of the subject just got me out in front of people, and now it's just routine for me. I can't draw or paint or anything to call myself an artist or a sculptor. I had no skills at the time in those categories, so I had to learn it all. And so I had to go out and spend time learning, getting through the learning curve to learn, first of all, how to do the carving and the turning first, then the carving, and then to my first goal when I first started the torsos, my first torsos looked like PVC pipe. I mean, they were pretty ugly. I had to figure out what the human form looked like. I had no anatomy or any medical background to understand the muscle contour and everything in the human form, so I had to learn all that, you know, and it's all, people come to me all the time and say, oh, I could never do that, I don't have any talent. Baloney. It doesn't take talent. I'm proof of that. I don't have any talent. If you want to do it, you can learn it. It doesn't take talent.
Yeah, I agree. That's the same with me. I just practice
Yep.
all the time, and because I don't have any talent. Lyle, I know you've been on YouTube for a while. How did you come up with the idea for doing live demos broadcast over YouTube? I mean, that's pretty innovative.
Well, a number of years ago, that's not my idea either. A number of years ago, Alan Zenrich is the leader of this project, and he came to me 3-4 years ago and said, "What about it?" And they said, "When you're ready, I'm on," because that I could see the future. This is great. They're completely live and interactive with my audience. It's just like, and then I've had feedback from people after I've done it. It's just like I'm there, only they don't have to clean up the shavings afterwards. And I don't have to, they don't have to pay my travel to go to the different venues all around the country. I was in England and in Hawaii in the same week. I did a demo in Virginia and in Portland, Oregon on the same day because of the time difference. You know, I didn't have to travel. I walk in my shop and turn the light on. So
Yeah. Why don't you show us one of the pieces that you have there that you've done? Tell us a little bit about that one.
This is just one of the sculptures, a little kimono kind of a thing that I do. This is kind of a takeoff on the human form, a little simpler,
How did you ever
smaller.
hollow that out?
Well, yeah, it's hollowed. It's hollowed all the way up to all the way through the middle, but the outside's only turned to here, and then there's a donut around here that the arms have to be carved.
Ah, okay, yeah, I see that now. That's just gorgeous.
Yep.
Beautiful grain orientation. That's just,
You know, maple burl that we have in northern Michigan. It's beautiful wood. Yep.
so you teach and you sculpt. Which do you like the most?
I would rather be in my shop creating, but it's really fun and satisfying, and I get great response from the teaching to see somebody come in my shop, and I do teaching in my shop also. See somebody come in my shop and start to learn some of these techniques, and you see their eyes brighten up, and you see it starting to click, and all of a sudden, I mean, that's really cool.
That
and
is, yeah,
it's
I
great
do
to
a
see
little
that.
teaching. Yeah, that's true. You've got a couple of DVDs that you've done, Bowl Basics the Easy Way and In-Depth Hollowing Techniques. Great videos, which I've seen and have. Are you planning one for your hollowing human form? Are you planning one for that?
Not really. I've talked about it. Anybody that's interested in some more details can contact me and we can get you more details, but it's a 3-month process and it's almost impossible to try to capture it and edit it down into a DVD. It's mostly carving. The quick answer or explanation of that when I'm doing the torsos, let's say it's the 3-axis torso where I have to go down into the tummy and then into both legs. I do the hollowing part first so that the block of wood is still there to hang on to. I do the hollowing only on the lathe. The entire outside of the vessel is carved. If I try to turn the outside shape of the leg or the torso at all, then there's no wood there to hang on to for the other axes.
Gotcha.
So the turning is only the inside shape and the outside is completely carved.
How's the wood turning community accepted your sculptors?
Well, everybody loves them, they're impressed with them, but that's not where my market was for sales. The market was for, in my plastic surgeons area and some galleries around the country, but you know, people love them. Not everybody wants a female form, kind of a nude form sitting in their living room, so it's not for everybody, but and it's
it doesn't matter,
it's
right?
not, yeah, it's not for the turning world. Most people don't want to do that. They don't want to invest the energy and time to do that, and that's okay. It's more fun to make a really pleasing vessel of some kind that you can orient the axis and the grain and the color and everything and come up with something spectacular. You don't have to go as far as I did out on the artsy scale.
I'm glad you did, because I really enjoy those. When I first saw those, I thought, how did he do that? You know? That's great. let's talk a second about your YouTube channel. You've been doing that for a while. How did you stumble onto that or plan to do that? And do you like doing it?
Well, what that's done is kind of changed my workload. Instead of traveling so much, I'm able to still get the information out and teach and show my tools and things over the internet, both with the live remote demos and the YouTube channel. I was a little concerned at first. Here I am making money teaching, and now I'm going to give it away on YouTube, but it's the best thing I could have ever done. The following that I have, I've had more than 1.5 million views on my YouTube channel with I think 12,000 subscribers, and so the audience is huge.
Yeah, it's great. I'm just starting it. 3 or 4 months ago is when I started my wood turning part. I've had one for a while, but just started my wood turning part. Can you give us a real quick piece of advice for turners out there? You just, something pearl of wisdom for as we finish up here.
About YouTube, or
no, about wood turning.
Advice about wood turning in general, I would say follow the fun. Why are we turning? How many out there in the audience is making a living at turning? Very few, right? So it's all about having fun and enjoyment. Another thing that I'm involved with is veterans. I'm helping veterans learn how to turn, and turning or woodworking, artwork of any kind can be therapeutic. You're going into the shop and you're concentrating on a project that all the rest of the world melts away. And so that's very relaxing, very helpful to people with PTSD and other problems that I've helped people get into turning as a therapeutic venue. But follow the fun, follow the things that are enjoyable. That's why we're walking into the shop, because it's an enjoyable venture. Okay, don't make work out of it. Do the things that you enjoy, and all the rest. If you end up selling pieces, that's fine, but sell the pieces you love, not because somebody, you have a market for it that, you run into production work when you're not really having fun doing production. I mean, I have an architect or somebody come to me every once in a while for doing some special spindles and things, and it's not my thing. I hate doing it. I don't want to do it, but the money's there, so I make a game out of it, and I do it as fast as I can and move on to my more creative things. But
you told me that you have a veterans event coming up. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that event? I'm
involved with a group of veterans in northern Michigan that is producing an art show. It's by veterans, for veterans, so it's a benefit affair. It's going to be a big deal. Going to be catered in food and wine and entertainment and the whole schmeal, a big show, all to help veterans get their work out. What we're finding is both categories of veterans and artists are solitary creatures. And so, first of all, we had a hard time reaching them and then bringing them in and then celebrating their art and doing a show for them. So it's coming together, it's working, and we're going to have a great event.
That's great. When is it?
September 28th in Traverse City.
Okay.
You can see Veterans Inspiring Veterans is the name of our group, and there's a Facebook page and a website that you can get information if you are in Michigan or want to get involved with it.
I'll link that down in the show notes, so be sure and check that out. Well, Lyle, it's been a pleasure. I really appreciate you spending some time with me. It's been an honor.
Thank you.
Thanks,
appreciate
and
it. Good luck with your channel.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Today I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina at the American Association Woodturners. Today I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm attending the American Association of Woodturners International. So I think I'm going to take a break and have something to eat and try this again. Okay, that interview with Lyle Jamieson was pretty cool. If you liked it, click the like button there, and if you haven't subscribed, right there, ring the bell. The next video I got it queued up just for you, right there.